Welcome back to another episode of The Kennel. I always welcome people back to The Kennel. I always assume you've been here before.
There
Stevie James, Gian Trotta. What's up, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about what the Browns should do with the 10th pick in the draft, as well as a little bit of speculation with some free agency and some trades. It's going to be rad. But first, how you doing, Gian?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, living the dream. Number 2 with video, episode 116, but episode 2 with video. So if you're listening and you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, make sure you go and do that. We can't have like our own URL yet till we have 100 subscribers, I learned.
That's lame.
Yeah, so just search the episode. Just search The Kennel, episode 116, and whatever the hell we call this.
And we'll also post links on all of our other social media and Twitter, Football Kennel, Instagram, Football Kennel, Facebook, Football Kennel, LinkedIn, Football Kennel.
Already running out of air, bro? We're just getting started. Which reminds me, we are kind of firing up the Facebook now, so make sure you follow us on that too. So we're doing it big. With all that being said...
We're doing it live.
It's not live.
We're doing it big.
With all that being said, let's get into it. We'll start with some trade potential. This has been floating around a lot the past week or so, and the Browns are rumored to be part of a trade.
We might be trading for Janik Ngako. The defensive end.
Is it Janik? It's not Yannick?
Yannick? That sounds like a... I don't know. That sounds like that's his name.
Okay. I like Janik. I'm into that.
Yannick Ngako.
All right. Tell us about him.
He's the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive end right now, and he is a hell of a product at 25 years old, still very capable, one of the top pass rushers in the entire NFL. For the last 4 seasons, he's been a starting defensive end for Jacksonville, but it doesn't look like it's working out for them over there. He's spoken out against the team on multiple occasions, both on his social media and on several different interviews. But the Jaguars have said they're not looking to trade him, and if by any chance they are going to trade him, it's going to take quite a bargain for them to give him up.
Yeah, apparently they're asking for a first-round pick and more, which is outrageous. Right now he's under the franchise tag, so that's a hit of $18 million. So if you were to trade for him, not only do you have to absorb that immediate $18 million, but you also have to then sign him to a contract extension. And he may be worth it, but in order to get him, you have to give up. What they're asking for right now is at least a first-round pick, which we'll see. This, to me, seems like it's probably a situation where, they would love to get that, but ultimately they're not going to be able to. And this could be a situation we saw with Trent Williams last year with the Redskins, where it's going to drag on into the season, and it could be like a Le'Veon Bell situation where he refuses to play, and their back's up against the wall, and they're forced to move him for lower compensation than they would want to. So I don't think we see him move. Even in this offseason, I think the Jaguars are going to try to make it work with him. They franchise tagged him. They obviously want to keep him. But if he's as disgruntled as he's alluding to be, then maybe things change. He could get traded in the draft. That's possible as well.
Sure. I mean, he's a hell of a defensive end. He's racked up 37.5 sacks, 42 tackles for loss, and 85 quarterback hits and 14 forced fumbles, and he even has 2 interceptions. He's also extremely durable. He's only missed 2 games during his entire career. So I like him as a player, but I don't necessarily like him coming into the Browns because I think the idea of not only having to trade for him, but also having to sign him to a long-term deal, it just doesn't work for what we currently have in our roster. We have a bunch of young players that are going to need contracts very soon to add on, having to figure out how to manage this defensive end and his massive contract that will come with him inevitably. I don't think it's the right fit for the Browns right now. Could he be traded? I don't know. But for the Browns, I'm not sure it's the right move.
Would you trade Olivier Vernon and a 3rd-round pick for him?
Of course.
You be down for that?
Yeah, why not?
So if you can shed the salary hit of Vernon, which I think is about the same, it's like $18 million or something absolutely astronomical. Why we traded for him, I still don't understand.
I think, but
15 still an insane amount. I think moving Vernon makes a lot of sense if you are able to bring in a pass rusher of Yannick or Jonik's caliber, but when you start getting into draft picks and things of that nature, and he is on a franchise tag, because the other issue you have to figure out is if you do trade for him, what kind of an extension does he want? Is there going to be some friction there in trying to sign him?
I think inevitably it's going to have to be a long-term contract.
For sure.
It's going to be big money, and that's where I think the deal falls apart for me personally. Would I take that trade? Sure, but ultimately the move overall of making that trade plus having to sign him to the long-term deal, I just don't think works for the current roster situation and the Cleveland Browns.
I don't think it makes sense either. If he was a free agent, we could have a very different conversation about it. But having to give up assets to receive someone who's currently on a one-year deal and extend him, it's a little risky. Although we saw the Bears do it with Khalil Mack, and that paid off phenomenally well. So it's not completely out of the question, but it's not a move I see the Browns making. A move I think the Browns should make. On the other hand, speaking of signing free agents, I think the Browns should sign Jadeveon Clowney.
I'm with you. I was actually going to say now, since you brought up shedding the contract of Olivier Vernon, is doing that in order to make the cap room to sign Jadeveon Clowney to a 2-year deal, and the benefit in that is you don't have to trade for him.
No, he's a free agent. We can do whatever we want. He was originally asking for $20 million a year. Allegedly, he has now lowered what he's asking for down to $17 million, $18 million a year, something like that. I think the more guaranteed money you offer, the lower the overall contract can be. You offer a lot of guaranteed money and then make up the icing on the cake with incentives. I think that's a good move. But someone like Jadeveon Clowney, I think makes a lot of sense to bring in. And hell, we could keep Olivier Vernon and still bring in Clowney. We have something like $35 million in cap space. It's the most in the NFL. So that's a move we could make, but we do like rolling over the cap. So I don't think that's the move we necessarily should make. I think moving on from Vernon makes sense if you bring it in a Clowney. But at the same time, Clowney is a little injury prone, and so is Olivier Vernon. So maybe it makes sense, at least for a year, to have both of them in rotation.
Maybe. I don't know. I like Clowney. I think it would be a good move against.
Hot take, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I like Clowney, and I expressed what I thought would be a good move for the Browns to get Clowney, and the fact that you don't have to trade for him. I don't know what else you want me to add to that, bro.
No, that's fair. So the knock on Clowney is that he doesn't get a lot of sacks. Last year with the Seahawks, he only had 3 in 11 or 12 games, which is a very small amount. Even when he was at the Texans, I think his career high was like 9 in a season, something like that, which obviously isn't bad, but don't forget he was like the first overall pick in the draft not long ago with the Texans 5 years ago, something like that. He's a freak. But I don't care about any of that. I mean, his pass rush grade is okay. I think he's, according to Pro Football Focus, he's the 29th rated pass rusher last year. He got to the quarterback on 16% of his blitzing attempts. But here's why I really like Jadeveon Clowney and why I think he makes perfect sense for the Browns. First of all, you're putting him opposite Myles Garrett. And Jadeveon Clowney has had some issues with effort in the past, where he takes some plays off. He takes even some games off. But I think being on the opposite side of Myles Garrett is going to motivate him and push him to be better every game. Because one thing about Myles Garrett, there's a lot of great things about Myles Garrett, but one thing especially about him is that Myles Garrett gives it his all every game. That dude is a proud Cleveland Brown and he wants to win. He's probably my favorite player. I love Myles Garrett. But I think that's going to have a huge impact on Jadeveon Clowney. And the other reason I think Jadeveon Clowney is a perfect fit and why I think we should definitely sign him is in 2018, his last full season with the Texans, he was the second best rated edge defender, according to Pro Football Focus, against the run. He is one of the best in the game at setting the edge. You know what the Browns have been horrible at for like 20 years?
Setting the edge, stopping the run.
We can never do it.
Yeah.
We can never do it, ever. Never can we ever do it. He's one of the best in the NFL to do it. And in 2019, his last year with the Seahawks, I know I mentioned he only had 3 sacks, but according to Pro Football Focus, he was rated the 10th best edge defender overall last year.
Sure.
So while he may not get the sack production that you want to see, neither does Olivier Vernon, in all fairness.
Yeah. At least not last year.
Yeah, you got Myles Garrett on the other side to generate those sacks. And Jadeveon Clowney, he's no bum. He still generates pressure, but he's able to actually stop the run. I think if we have Garrett and Clowney on the edges...
he makes an impact overall in the game.
Yeah, you can't ignore him. I think having Clowney and Garrett on the edges would be massive in terms of our ability to stop the run and funnel things inside. And if you know that you're funneling most things inside, then you can bring in the extra bodies to help account for that.
Sure. No, it makes sense. It would be a good move for the Browns. We know Andrew Barry's already talked about Jadeveon Clowney being a quote-unquote good player, and the Browns obviously wanted to make an effort at picking him up.
And how exciting would it be?
It would be. It would be more star power for the Cleveland Browns.
Which is a little nerve-wracking.
Sure.
But
I mean, you would hope it just generates wins, right? That's why we got so excited about Odell Beckham, and obviously it was kind of a fluke year for him last year. Supposedly wasn't 100% healthy. We obviously didn't have the right system. So you hope it's Stefanski coming in here. You have Odell Beckham will have kind of a resurface and will come back, and Jarvis Landry will continue the tear that he's been having. I mean, he had a great year last year, and I think he'll continue that as Odell Beckham kind of picks up the pace, something he was lacking his first year with the Cleveland Browns. And then you keep adding these pieces on defense, especially on the line. I think it'll be a huge move for the Cleveland Browns, and what I hope it generates is more wins and a competitive team against the AFC North and the NFL in general.
Big facts. And after letting Kirksey go and Schobert go, we don't have any expensive players on defense right now.
Sure.
I mean, you can make the argument Myles Garrett, he's going to be due for a contract this coming off season. I get that.
But and there's something like a short-term 2-year Clowney deal. And again, that's why I mentioned shedding that contract is, getting rid of those $15 million that you're due for. And me and you have both multiple times said we don't think the cap in the NFL is like a real thing. Because every year it just goes up and teams can manipulate ways around it all the time. And it's just they're arbitrary numbers essentially, but I think this would be a smart move by the Cleveland Browns, and this is an analytical front office. I'm sure they've looked at this and they've realized that this is the right moves to strengthen that defensive line.
I hope they do it, man. Fingers crossed.
We'll see what happens.
I want Clowney back.
It has to be right for both sides. Clowney wants his money. We want to make sure we're doing the right things with our quote unquote cap that exists.
Yeah, and we can always shed Vernon, so that opens up some. We already have the most cap space in the NFL. So, to me, it's like... Is
that a fact?
That's a fact.
We were third.
No, right now we have the most. We have the most cap space in the NFL. So, the whole argument with, money and Clowney is if anyone signs him, a team and it's not the Browns, that means a team with less cap space signed him.
Sure.
So, there's no reason why we can't, as far as I'm concerned. But it's enough Clowney talk. It's enough clowning around. Yeah, I said it. That's right.
Let's move to the draft.
Let's talk about this draft.
First, let's talk about the draft altogether, and obviously the COVID-19 situation, the coronavirus, and the fact that it's moving to 100% virtual format. So teams are prohibited from gathering in their quote-unquote war rooms, and we'll all have to gather in remotely, like basically the entire country is right now, the world.
It's a good thing it's the future, because if this happened
in the 90s or 80s,
it'd be a lot more difficult.
We'd be in trouble.
Really difficult to pull off. But now, honestly, this is probably a better way to do it.
No, it's not.
No, and I mean, obviously having the war rooms is more ideal, but as far as being able to do it online, that's easy. That's nice.
I think the Browns are one of the teams that are I don't even know if that's easy, because reliability is an issue, right? So of course they need to have, and the quote unquote will have multiple fail safes in case of any kind of network issues or any technical issues whatsoever. So you would think the NFL, with its billions of dollars, can handle it. So
you would think.
But you never know, right?
Worst case scenario, pick up the phone and make a call.
Right, but I mean, it does present general issues around planning and situating yourself, getting yourself coordinated with your team. In general, I think teams have their plan
IT departments.
In place.
Yeah.
Well, that too, but I just mean the overall draft process. They have their plans in place. They're ready to go when the day comes, and it doesn't really require them to be in the same room, but it is going to be a difference overall for this NFL year. I mean, we're getting right to the point. I think we already passed. Actually, we passed the point where teams with new head coaches would have been having their preliminary camps, and we've missed out on that. Kevin Stefanski would have already had.
Really, this soon?
Yeah, bud. Kevin Stefanski and all new head coaches have already passed through the process of being able to meet. They get the extra time for being rookie head coaches. That's already gone.
I thought that was a little bit later.
I could be wrong. I'm almost positive it's I literally just read about it or heard about it somewhere.
Somewhere in your soul. I will say the thing that's nice is
we're all plugged into sports in one way or the other, because that's all there is right now is what's going to happen with the NBA? What's going to happen? Is there going to be baseball this year? How is this impacting the NFL? So
and it's looking like no for most, but the NFL, it's perfect. Scheduled at the perfect time. This benefit.
Sort of. I mean, they already had to. Like I said, they're already getting impacted. If I'm right about this, the NFL is already getting impacted by this, and the fact that they had to transition to a virtual draft, that's an impact.
Yeah, but this is going to be the most watched draft of all time, and if the NFL doesn't have to lose any games, then they fare a million times better than baseball, NBA, everybody else. So obviously it sucks for everybody, but if you had to pick a time to have your season right now, the fall is definitely the best time, and that's the NFL, which is sick. I'm excited for the virtual draft. I think the Browns have a little bit of an advantage as a result of it being virtual.
Yeah, last Monday would have signaled the start of the 9-week offseason workout program for the 5 NFL teams with new head coaches. So that's Carolina, Dallas, Washington, Cleveland, and the New York Giants.
That does suck.
And so now we can't begin participating in conditioning drills, light workouts, and obviously this is the point in time where, and you would think that Baker and the offense and the defense, they're already getting their playbooks, they're getting the semantics, they're getting the code words, they're getting the signals in place now. They're doing their memorization, these things that they're already used to doing, but they're used to doing them in team settings, especially when you're talking about new coaches. Mm-hmm. This is happening in facilities, and you're not only doing the memorization things, you're doing the light workouts, you're doing the conditioning. Of course, it's not mandatory for everybody to be showing up, but for new head coaches and for Stefanski, this is already a drawback. If we come into next year and we see a struggle, at least offensively, and from Baker kind of getting this game plan together, we can directly, for once, attribute it to a very specific thing, and that's that we're already missing out on time.
Well, it'll be interesting because we'll have to compare it to the other teams that have new head coaches and see how they're faring.
For sure, right.
So there's a lot that goes into it. It is unfortunate, but I will say I feel really good about Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. I think they're very intelligent, very prepared, very, no pun intended, but analytical guys, not just as far as football analytics, but just analytically driven in general. So I think they're going to have a lot of creative solutions as to how to best make use of this time. I think a lot of old school football guys are going to struggle with this a lot more.
I see to your point for sure.
I think having the youngest GM in NFL history, who's a Harvard cum laude, whatever the hell you call it.
I was really hoping you weren't going to bring that stuff up.
And you have. I'm not talking about using computers. I'm talking about what you're talking about with missing getting the extra practice time as a new head coach, missing those practices, having to deal with communication. I don't mean the actual IT of it, but having to communicate differently. I think it's going to be a lot easier for Barry and Stefanski, who are in their late 30s, early 40s, than it would be for a lot of the more old school NFL guys who are 60, 70 and still use flip phones and barely touch computers.
Well, I was just going to kind of mock Mary Kay Cabot.
Yes, I know what you're pulling up right now.
Because she tweeted, Browns GM Andrew Berry graduated cum laude from Harvard with a bachelor's in econ and a master's in computer science in 4 years. A virtual NFL draft is not going to freak him out, even if it's his first one.
I know, it's funny, right? I actually quote tweeted that, and I was like, I too know how to use a computer. Which is funny. But, I get what she's trying to allude to.
I get what she's trying to say. I also don't like her.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, the biggest thing, though, is like I said, I think more than anything, to sum it up, is our guys are flexible. They're not stuck in their ways. They don't even have ways to be stuck in because we got a new head coach and a new GM, which does make me a little nervous. But at the same time, I think these guys are smart. I think they're going to figure it out. I'm looking forward to the draft. I can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is the one thing we're all looking forward to. For me, it was two things. I was actually looking forward to UFC 249, and then I was looking forward to the draft. But now UFC 249 is happening, so please.
It's not happening?
It's not.
That's what you meant. Okay, cool.
It's not happening.
That's unfortunate. Stupid.
So I could really use the draft right about now.
I'm very excited. We're coming up on it. So let's talk about what the Browns should do in this draft. We'll have one more episode before the actual draft hits. I think next week we'll do like we talked about it last week, doing the 10-pick mock draft, just for fun. We're not doing a couple years ago we did
multiple mock drafts, one with trades, one with no trades, and we did the first round of everything.
Really, and that's when the Browns had a bunch of picks.
Second round picks too.
Yeah, those were different times. But now that the Browns just have one pick, we're not going to get too crazy. But let's start talking about what the Browns should do at 10, and we're going to start with the elephant in the room. The most obvious thing that everyone's been talking about is the Browns should draft a tackle.
Of course, we should solidify that offensive line. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it.
So I think it's definitely the move that should be made. Obviously, we signed Jack Conklin to secure the right tackle spot, and we rearranged Chris Hubbard's contract to keep him around, likely as a swing tackle or competing for that right guard spot. But we need a left tackle. We need someone that we can solidify on that side to protect Baker Mayfield's blind side for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that'd be nice. What's interesting about Chris Hubbard is, don't forget, when he played with the Steelers, he was the fill-in across the offensive line. So he center, guard, tackle, you name it. We brought him in and put him in at right tackle. So him playing right guard is not out of the question.
No, definitely not.
Right now, we don't have a right guard, basically. We let Cush go, who started a bunch of games for us. We had someone else starting right guard. I'm drawing a blank. But basically, the right guard spot is completely wide open. And then obviously left tackle with Greg Robinson. I don't think we've re-signed him. Maybe we haven't. Maybe we will. Who knows? But he's not going to be playing left tackle for the Browns. So we gotta fill two positions on the offensive line. I like the idea of putting Chris Hubbard at right guard. So that leaves us with left tackle as the big position to really focus on. And conveniently, there's some damn good tackles in this draft.
This is a tackle-heavy draft for sure. We've compiled a few of them here, and we're going to talk about them now.
So the first one, Andrew Thomas from Georgia. This is a guy that I like a lot. I think he's probably, I don't know, it depends who you talk to, but a lot of people have him as the top tackle in this draft, and there's a lot of talks that he's not going to make it past the Giants because they need a lot of help at offensive line, and they're picking 4th overall in the draft. So there's a lot of talk he won't make it past them, but at the same time, as we know, it's hard to predict, so anything's possible. But what are your thoughts on him? This is a guy I'll say this. We're going to talk about 4 tackles primarily. I'm honestly pretty much fine with any of them, to just make it clear. But let's get into kind of the nitty-gritty briefly.
I feel similar in a lot of ways to what you're saying regarding the 4 tackles, and I even mentioned to you the idea, we're going to touch base on that a little later in the episode, is potentially trading up, trading down. Would you trade down if none of these 4 guys are there and you could get some assets? And I think we both agree, like, if the right tackle, not right tackle, but the correct tackle isn't available there at 10, or you're not able to quote-unquote trade up for him, would you be open to a trade down for some more picks?
Jumping the gun, but the answer is probably. It depends who else is on the board. If all 4 of those guys are going in the top 9 picks, then that means only 5 other players have been taken. Allegedly, 3 of those are supposed to be quarterbacks, with the Bengals obviously taking Burrow at 1. Then you have the Dolphins and the Chargers rumored to be taking either Tua or Justin Herbert. And then there's even talks of Jordan Love potentially going top 10. So that would mean only 2 players are drafted, which is probably Chase Young and the corner from Ohio State, who's, sorry, Buckeyes fans, I know I'm drawing a blank. Okunda, I think is his name.
College football.
So it's most likely those 2 guys, which means there's some serious talent sit there at 10, namely Isaiah Simmons.
Some people we
or
want.
If Simmons is already gone, and Chase Young for sure would have to be gone, then all of a sudden you're looking at Okunda, the corner from Ohio State. Now, I know we have Greedy and Denzel, but
hard to pass
if
up
he's
on that.
there at 10, that's something you have to seriously consider. So maybe trading back does make sense, but the point I'm making is if all 4 of these tackles go and the 3 quarterbacks go, like are allegedly supposed to be going, I don't know, man. There might be someone there worth taking.
That's a fair point. But let's talk about Andrew Thomas, and coming out of Georgia. I think he's probably the most agile out of all these tackles, but has a little bit of concerns with choppiness in his pass sets against the more advanced NFL pass rushers that he's going to face in his NFL career. He presents the right mentality. He's definitely super strong, and he has a lot of coachable traits. He said a lot of great things about the Browns and the phone calls he had with the Browns. I think he has the traits to be a top-level tackle right away, and he's obviously played left side. He's played the right side. He can play both sides, but we really want to solidify him as that left tackle spot, and I think he would do a great job.
I agree. To me, he's a no-brainer. I think if he's there at 10 and we draft him, there's nothing to complain about.
Right.
I think it makes a lot. It's not exciting. I know offensive line isn't exciting or sexy, but we already have a lot of exciting.
That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah,
big guys. We just want them to be quiet, knew their jobs.
Exactly. We already have a lot of exciting and sexy players, though, on offense especially. So we need to protect the quarterback so we can get them the ball. Moving on to Jedrick Wills
from Alabama.
This dude is really great. So he protected the blind side for Tua, but Tua's left-handed.
Right.
So that meant that he was playing on the right side of the line, and he was phenomenal. I mean, he's with Alabama. Alabama doesn't mess around. He only allowed 1 sack and just 5 quarterback hits and 27 hurries over the course of 970 snaps. 1 sack, 970 snaps, which is that's pass blocking snaps to be more specific. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
In my opinion, he's probably the best outright tackle in the draft, but he's going to have a very tough time switching from his natural position of right tackle.
He may or may not. The issue is that it's impossible to know. And what sucks is, hopefully we got a chance to work this guy out a little bit before all the bullshit happened, because a great way you can find out is in a private workout.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've had one of those with him.
Well, the problem is really the muscle memory and switching the feet up from the right side to the left side, because it's like you have to mirror the movements that you've been conditioning onto your brain for multiple seasons as a football player.
What's interesting is Andrew Berry said that he thinks tackles are interchangeable. They can play either side. That's what he told the media.
Tackles would disagree with him.
Yeah, I actually would be curious to know what Joe Thomas thinks of that.
He would disagree with him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because I couldn't imagine him playing right tackle. He was very, very left tackle. No. I don't know, but he's one of the best ever to do it. He could do it if he had to.
So, speaking of Joe Thomas, he talked about Andrew Thomas, but he also talked about one other guy that he liked as almost like the best fit for the Cleveland Browns at 10, and that's Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, the next tackle we're going to talk about now.
Why does he think he's the best option?
He just I don't know. He was on the radio talking about it, and he said if there are other guys, if we're looking at potentially more of like pass protection and them being ready to be pass protect heavy, but thinking of the offense that Kevin Stefanski is likely going to run and the scheme that he's likely going to run, he thinks Tristan Wirfs is going to be the best guy. He played in the right type of offense in college to, I think, assimilate to the pro offense style that we're going to play with Stefanski. Yeah,
and wow. In 2018, he didn't allow a single sack.
In 428 pass blocking snaps. That's 2018. And he just gave up 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and 3 quarterback hurries in 481 pass blocking snaps last season.
I mean, that's a great job. I don't know what more you want. And that's in the Big Ten. So you're facing some stout defenses, right, dealing with the weather, which that also translates nicely to Cleveland. So again, I mean, to echo what I said at the beginning of this segment, any of these tackles, the more I look into him, the more I'm like, I don't know.
So touching base on the kind of scheme, I'm just like looking more up on what he did. So Iowa played a very complex and varied scheme, and that'll translate extremely well to the NFL. He's a great counter defender. He can reset quickly from one defender to another with a little lunging, not a lot of loss, and
all those scouting words.
He has a tendency to make people move away from the ball carrier, can push people out of his frame easily. So he's got some weaknesses like all of these players do coming into the draft. Right. But I think that he's an automatic switch. Some people think he's going to be an automatic switch to guard, but personally, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Joe. If he's there at 10 and the other guys are not, he's going to be a perfect fit for the type of offense that we want to run.
Hey, and I guess worst case scenario, if he is better at guard, then you can always put him at guard. We need a right guard too. Left tackle's more important, but just saying, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And the last guy, this is a guy who I like a lot just because of how big he is. Mekhi Becton from Louisville. This dude is 6'7", 370 pounds.
Yeah.
He is freakishly huge,
but ridiculously athletic.
Extremely athletic. He moves around like he's not 6'7", 370, but 6'2", 280. He can make the moves and do the things, which is nice.
So he's like the ultimate example of Bill Parcells' planet theory.
Yeah, and
he's like, if you could see a player that's as big as him and as athletic as him, which is not normal, you should take the leap and pick him up.
Yeah, what could it hurt? And he's turning 21 in a week, actually. So on the 18th, he'll turn just 21 years old, and he already has just insane size and power and mobility. Imagine what he could develop into. I kind of want to lean towards him because of the upside. There's a little more risk with Becton, which we'll talk about, but just he has more upside than any other tackle in this draft by a mile, just from his size and natural athleticism.
He's got to be willing to expand his technique quite a bit, but it's definitely he definitely has the capability to move beyond the advantages that his body give him. But I love the way Bill Parcells says it. If there are only so many people on the planet who are this big and can be this agile, you'd better get the guy when he comes around.
Facts. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I like freaks of nature. It's super fun.
Yeah.
And it's just imposing.
It's hard to disagree.
It's just imposing. I mean, dude, it's crazy to think about. So Joe Thomas has said, as he became a veteran, there were seasons where he was playing as light as like 280. Just because his technique was so good, he didn't feel like, he would start the season at about 300, but he would go down to where he said the lightest he'd probably played was like 280. This dude's 370. That's 90 pounds.
But it just goes to show it's not all about size, but the athleticism that this guy presents at his size.
He reminds me of like a Jonathan Ogden, as much as that hurts me. He was a longtime Ravens tackle who was just massive and just so athletic and was a nightmare, and he terrorized the Browns for a long time. So I would like to have some of that on our side. So now, outside of those four guys, there are a lot of other good tackles, and this is why you had mentioned the potential of trading down, maybe an option. I think if you're going to take a tackle and any one of these four guys is there at 10, you take them.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
That's my thinking. And then we talked about if they're not, then what do you do? And as I said, if there's a bunch of quarterbacks out the board, a bunch of tackles off the board, then maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense to trade down. We do have an early pick in the second round too. With that being said, some other guys, we're not going to break all these guys down, but just to name them, some other guys that have a lot of potential to be good tackles in the NFL are Josh Jones from Houston, Isaiah Wilson from Georgia, Austin Jackson from USC.
Prince Tega Wanoho.
He's one of my favorites.
From Auburn.
Just because of his name.
Just because of his name.
Literally, that's all.
And also over 3 seasons and 1,120 total pass blocking snap. Only allowed 3 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and 34 quarterback
And he's a really big dude as well. Another guy who's been linked to the Browns a lot is Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State. I love that his last name's Cleveland. It would be hilarious if with the new jerseys we're taking Cleveland off the front and putting it on his back.
Hilariously enough, he played for Boise State, and they're the Broncos.
Nice. The nerve. And the last one, Lucas Niang from TCU. I don't know anything about him, but he's in this top 10 list. So, moral of the story is the top 4 tackles.
This is a cool fact. 995 pass blocking snaps over 3 seasons with TCU.
You're talking about Lucas Niang.
Never allowed a single sack.
That's pretty wild. So, moral of the story is this draft is loaded with tackles. The top 4 tackles are definitely stand above the rest, but that doesn't mean they're going too long term. If we decide to pass on a tackle and do something different at 10, which, spoiler alert, that's what we're going to get into next right now. If we do that and we still have our second round pick, there's a really good chance we can get a really good tackle with the 10th pick in the second round.
Yeah.
So I just want to make everybody aware of that. If you're watching on draft day and we do something radically different with the 10th pick, I don't want you to, the Browns blew it again. Just wait for the second round.
Also, take into account that if one of these guys is there and they want one of these guys, there is the possibility to either trade up with that second round pick and get more talent later in the first round, or use that second round pick to get another lineman and just build that up, because like you've mentioned, we do have a hole at right guard as well. So the offensive line in general We just need to start throwing picks at a dartboard. You know what I mean? We just need to try to get the right people in there to strengthen that offensive line.
Bringing in Jack Conklin's nice because all of a sudden we have
huge for this offensive
We have
line.
one of the best centers, one of the best guards, and one of the best tackles.
Tackles, yeah.
And then we have 2 gaping holes.
Sure. But what were we able to do? If we're able to get anything solid on that left tackle side and anything decent in that right guard spot,
We have one of the best lines in the NFL.
yeah, think about what we were able to do during that last 8-game stretch when Baker finally came in and made his debut into the NFL, and how we had the best interior defensive line with Bitonio, with J.C. Treader, with who did we have?
Zeitler.
We
I
traded
miss
him. We traded him for
Vernon.
Odell, so I forgot about
for
him.
Vernon.
Well, technically
It all got
for
packaged
Odell,
together,
yeah.
but originally for
It was
Olivier
just for,
Vernon.
right.
Yeah.
But
Still mad
my
about it?
point stands. Those 3 guys in the interior defensive line made up one of the best interior offensive lines, in the NFL. So we can simulate, and then with that in mind, who we had at left tackle, who was it, Greg Robinson, and then we had Chris Hubbard at right tackle. We thought Chris Hubbard was the answer. We thought Greg Robinson was the answer.
Oops.
We can make these guys look decent if we have at least most of the offensive line with these great pieces, like you mentioned.
Which we do now. So
Right.
if you can add a nice left tackle, all of a sudden...
Exactly.
And what's nice, too, is you're putting him in a really strong room. So he's going... If you draft a left tackle at 10, he's going to be next to Joel Bitonio on the line.
Huge.
He's going to be learning from Bitonio. He's going to be learning from Jack Conklin on the right side. Like J.C. Treader was playing on broken ankles for a whole year. Something insane. Like
sprained, but horribly sprained.
Yeah, so it's a really strong room to throw a young player into, is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, it'll be huge. It's hard to find something like that in the NFL for any rookie, so it'll be huge for them. Whoever comes into that room, and having someone like Bitonio, having someone like J.C. Treader in the center, having Jack Conklin at the right side, and obviously having a legend like Joe Thomas on the regular visiting and
Right.
giving him pointers and helping him.
Right, I think Joel Bitonio's on his way to become a legend too. That dude is a great guard, and we
He's
already
on his
have
way.
him. We already
He's
have him
certainly on his
locked
way.
up. Thank God.
Sure.
Anyways, so now we're gonna get into some crazier scenarios, bordering on clickbait, but I don't care because these are things I've been thinking about, and we're gonna talk about trading up in the draft. And the first person,
Oh no,
that's right, something the Browns almost never do, is trade up. We're always trading down and accumulating assets and accumulating
always
assets.
letting go of our franchise quarterbacks, except for now.
Yeah, and accumulating assets. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we're in a more aggressive mode. Don't forget, I mean, last year we didn't have a first-round pick,
Sure.
and no one cared because we got Odell Beckham. So
That was our first round.
Yeah, it all depends on the return, which is important. But what I want to get into this year is capitalizing on moving up from 10 to pretty high. So let's start with a guy that I'm obsessed with, and that's Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker safety hybrid from Clemson. This dude, in my opinion, I mean, we can talk about Chase Young, but before we do, is Isaiah Simmons is arguably the Bill Parcells quote you said. There's certain people that they just shouldn't be that athletic at that size or whatever. You should just draft them. Isaiah Simmons is that to a T. This dude is 6'4", 240 pounds, and he ran a 4.39. That means he's faster than most receivers. At 6'4", 230 pounds, he played all over the defense at Clemson, which I don't know if you knew, but Clemson is one of the best programs in the country, winning championships left and right. And he was a leader on that defense. He played linebacker, safety, everywhere in between. Allegedly, he's really smart, and that's why he was able to play all these different positions. He made an impact at every different position. The knock on him is, well, maybe he doesn't fit any true position in the NFL.
And he has a bit of a lack of instinct to the line of scrimmage.
Sure. But you're talking about
He
a
makes
team...
up for it with ridiculous explosiveness, athleticism, ridiculous explosive vertically as well. He's a monster. He's a threat.
He can catch
He's
the
going
ball.
to be a nightmare for quarterbacks at 6'4", being that explosive as well.
So fast. He can jump so high.
Just a world of possibilities for defensive coordinators.
Yeah, so the knock on him is that he may not fit any one position, but I just don't care about that or believe that. I think he can, wherever you line him up, he's going to be able to do it. And you're seeing this a lot more in the NFL with hybrid safety linebacker roles.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to replicate kind of like something like fuck the Steelers, but something that the Steelers do often defensively with their linebackers is they do kind of build these hybrid-ish linebacker guys that kind of play a little bit all over the field.
And why do you think they brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's that exact mold? He's a hybrid safety, bigger guy for occasional linebacking positions.
Someone like him, I would see. I would have to think that a team has to like kind of pick where they want to play him and build him there. So I think internally, if we want him to be that middle hybrid linebacker, we'd have to get him middle hybrid linebacker snaps. We kind of would have to move him away from being kind of all over the place, stylistically or
at least at
positionally.
First. At least at first.
Right. But I think that would ultimately help his position, because you don't want to do what, for example, Greg Williams did to Jabril Peppers, playing him
just ruined him
as an angel safety.
Why'd he do that?
I don't know.
No one understands.
But he started using him quote unquote the right way, closer to the line of scrimmage the year after that, before we traded him to the Giants, and you saw him do well. He did well with the Giants before he got injured, because they were playing him that way as well. They weren't playing him in this crazy angel defense scheme. So I think it would be that, you don't want to move him away from what he's going to be great at an NFL level. Once he gets comfortable there, then you let him loose.
Yeah, I think having him in that strong safety linebacker role, I don't know if I've seen a lot of these comparisons, but to me, Isaiah Simmons reminds me of a more athletic Troy Polamalu.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen a lot of those comparisons, but I think that's the exact kind of play. Obviously, Troy Polamalu's, sadly, Steelers, but one of the best defensive players to ever do it, period, regardless of position, especially safety. You could make an argument, Troy, Ed Reed, that's like the best safeties, of course, both in our division. Anyways, I think Isaiah Simmons can be that kind of a player where he can roam the secondary, but for the most part, having him as that strong safety, up more towards the line of scrimmage, but able to also drop back into coverage. So as an offense going against our defense, you don't know if he's going to sprint at you with his 4.39 and come off the edge unblocked, or is he going to drop back and be able to catch up to your number one receiver and help with a double team? And the other thing that I think about is we have to face Lamar Jackson twice a year. Mm-hmm. I can think of no better player to have from this draft to help deal with a Lamar Jackson than Isaiah Simmons.
Sure. I see him actually more commonly compared with Darius Leonard, who was one of the most impactful defensive rookies we've seen in years. He led the NFL in tackles with 163 in his first NFL season, tallied 284 with 12 sacks, 7 interceptions, and 6 forced fumbles through 2 years. That's insane numbers. And the kind of explosiveness that Darius Leonard brought to the Colts on defense, and being able to kind of, like you're saying, be all over the field, impact every position, whether it's at the line of scrimmage, coming at the quarterback, or falling back and catching an interception, disrupting a pass. That's the kind of impact that Simmons is going to have in the NFL on any defense. I would like for it to be the Browns defense.
And Simmons is way more an impressive athlete than Darius Leonard. That's part of the reason why Darius Leonard fell in the draft. He's like a Mack Wilson in terms of athleticism. He's athletic, but he's not knock your socks off athletic like an Isaiah Simmons is. Yeah. Which takes it to the next level. So with that being said, there have been some mock drafts that have Isaiah Simmons falling to number 10. But the majority don't have that happening. A lot of mock drafts have potentially the Lions taking him at 3. There's been some crazy mock drafts saying that he'll go as early as 2 before Chase Young to the Redskins. But I think in most common scenarios, he's going to the New York Giants at 4, and then occasionally either the Panthers or the Cardinals at 7 or 8. So with that being said, I think we'll start with this. I think if he's at 10 and you're the Browns, you draft him.
Okay.
Period. I'd take him over. I wouldn't
be mad.
Any of the tackles we talked about, I'm taking Isaiah Simmons over any of those tackles.
After letting go of Kirko and Schober, I wouldn't be mad with the move.
The defense right now is an issue. And again, like we said, say we take Simmons at 10, we still have a high pick in the second round, and there's still a lot of tackles we're taking in this draft.
Sure.
We're not just folding on the tackle position by taking Simmons at 10. We're desperately helping the defense. And now imagine what we talked about earlier, signing Jadeveon Clowney. What if you sign Clowney and draft Simmons?
Ugh.
You got Myles Garrett. You got Simmons, Clowney. In the secondary, you still have Greedy and Denzel.
Mac Wilson
at the linebackers position. All of a sudden, the defense is...
We have some veteran pieces here and there. Adrian Claiborne, for example.
Yeah, all of a sudden, the defense is looking pretty scary.
A little more solid.
Pretty scary. Players that scare you.
But
players that scare you at different levels.
For sure. I'm just
proven players that scare you at different levels. Now, how they work cohesively. Not
necessarily proven. I don't think
proven. Denzel Ward is already a Pro Bowler. He's got to stay healthy.
Once he's young and has had trouble staying healthy and have inconsistent tackling.
This man is writing off Denzel Ward.
Greedy Williams,
can you believe it?
Same, has shown to be inconsistent. Our safety room is a barren wasteland. We have a couple of veteran, like rotational pieces there. Myles Garrett, absolutely, yeah. Pro Bowler, crazy beast.
I will say overall, though, you're kind of making the point that like addressing defense early in this draft.
It's important. I would not be
maybe a good idea.
Absolutely, yes.
So, but here's the thing. What if he doesn't drop to 10, and what if the Browns decide they really want him, and say they decide that they want to trade all the way up to number 4 in the NFL draft with the Giants? We'd likely have to give up next year's first-round pick. I pulled up some of the recent trades just to get an idea of what we'd have to give up to move up that high. And just to briefly recap, in 2019 the Steelers moved up from 20 to 10. They gave up a second and a third in the same draft to do that. The year before, the Saints moved up from 27 to 14, and they had to give up a next year's first and a fifth in order to do that. 2017, a lot of trade ups. The Texans traded up from 25 to 12 with the Browns. And gave us their first round pick. The Chiefs went from 27 to 10, had to give up their third round pick that year and a first round the next year. And then the Bears that same year moved up from 3 to 2, and they had to give up 2/3 and a fourth. And they drafted Mitch Trubisky. This is just a weird, dumb thing. And then a huge trade up from 2011, another one that we remember all too well. The Falcons going from 27 to 6th, trading with the Browns. To get Julio Jones. They traded their first, second, and a fourth round pick along with the next year's first and fourth round pick to Cleveland. So a lot of assets, but we're not talking about going from 27 to 6. We're talking about going from 10 to 4. So I think you can get there with giving up just a first round draft pick, the next year's first round draft pick. Plus, we know that the Giants,
maybe like a fourth.
The Giants GM doesn't necessarily respect the Browns. That he traded Odell Beckham there out of like spite, basically. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, no, they brought in a new head coach, the whole thing. So I'm making up stuff that doesn't... Do they still have the same GM?
I don't know.
The Giants?
I care very little about any other team besides Orange.
I understand totally, but moral of the story is...
Luckily, Google is a thing. They still do. Dave
Gettleman doesn't respect the Browns very much. He traded Odell Beckham there like out of spite. So I think he would really enjoy a first-round draft pick from the Browns, thinking that it's going to be a high first-round draft pick. So he may be entertaining the idea to where we can go from 10 to 4 with just good... I know they got Joe Judge from the Patriots at head coach. Special teams coordinator from the Patriots. But anyways, I think we can go from 10 to 4, just giving up a first-round draft pick in next year's draft. Would you be down to do that and we take Isaiah Simmons?
If we needed to, yeah. I feel like if here's the issue. Would I do that myself? I don't know. That's tough. I think at 10, I sit pretty. I wait for my turn. I see what's available. I move a few spots if I need to get the player I want, for sure. Am I headhunting for one particular player? No. I don't think that's the analytical technique. I don't think that's the mindset that this front office, this coaching staff, this Browns organization is going to take with the draft. I think they're going to take a smarter, quote-unquote, analytical approach. They'll sit back. They'll move up or down if they need to get their guy, but they're not going to do a crazy move like this to just get one guy. I think they understand that this draft is heavy with talent and that they are sitting pretty in quite a few different spots, like you mentioned, that early second-round pick, where they can get the guys that they want without really having to lose a lot of other assets. Now, if that's their guy, no matter what, that's a little different. But I just don't think that that's how this organization is going about things. I think they're not looking at it as a one-player thing, as a that's their guy thing. They're looking at several guys. If it makes sense to take them there, then that's the move. Otherwise, they move on.
I agree, and I think in this top 10, excluding the 3 quarterbacks, I think we're pretty much guaranteed to get a guy that we like at number 10, whether it's one of those 4 offensive tackles, a Simmons, the corner from Ohio State. I think if 3 quarterbacks go in the top 10, we're getting someone really good at 10.
Sure, right.
So I don't think we necessarily need to trade up. But like I said, I just really love Isaiah Simmons, dude.
And
I just think he's awesome.
That might change. I agree. I mean, he is. And that might change if, like you mentioned, these quarterbacks don't seem to be going as early as it looked like, as it was anticipated, which happens all the time.
If Miami passes on a quarterback and then the Chargers do right after, all hell's going to break loose.
Right.
It's a whole different draft.
It's a whole different draft.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, those kinds of things, we will only know on draft day as it's happening.
Can't wait.
But same. Right? But there's another big move we're contemplating or debating.
This is the most clickbaity move.
For
and
sure.
I'll admit that right off the rip.
Lead it off.
I have no shame, though, because I actually kind of really want it to happen.
If it happens, it'd be insane.
And that's trading up for Chase Young. That's right. The top player in the nation outside of Joe Burrow, the top non-quarterback in the nation, the best defensive end in the draft, Chase Young. Here's what's interesting about defensive end in this draft. After Chase Young, there's a huge drop-off. Huge drop-off from Chase Young to all the other defensive ends, to where a lot of analysts are saying there's not going to be another defensive end taken in the first round. So it's Chase Young than everybody else. If you want a defensive end, don't even bother until like mid-second going into the third round, because there's nobody for you to take.
Or Jadeveon Clowney.
Or sign Jadeveon Clowney, which we talked about. But here's just a crazy concept. Everyone has the Redskins taking him at 2. So we're going to start there. We don't need to talk. I think everyone listening to this, every Browns fan, is well aware of how good Chase Young is.
Sure.
He's insane.
Sure.
He's insane. He's the best.
Elite.
He's the best defensive end prospect since Myles Garrett, who we happen to have. So I think it would be crazy if we communicated with the Redskins and we moved all the way up from 10 to 2. I think it would take more than just next year's first round pick. I think it may be a situation where you have to give up like a handful of picks, maybe our first round this year. I wouldn't want to give up our second round pick, because we've been talking about how we would still, if we don't take a tackle in the first round, then we definitely want to take one in the second round. But I think the Redskins may be willing to move on the pick if we gave up like our first, our third. We have 2 third round picks. So give up one of the third round picks as well as our first round pick, next year's first round pick, and then maybe at most also the third round pick for next year. So you'd be giving up 2 firsts and 2 thirds.
It's a lot.
Which is a lot, but you'd be getting Chase Young,
A potential perennial All-Pro.
who you'd be putting opposite of Myles Garrett. And he's from Ohio State. So I just want, just really quick, close your eyes and let your imagination just run wild with having Chase Young on one side and Myles Garrett on the other. That would be completely ridiculous. I think you move Vernon in that case. Maybe even to move up with the Redskins.
Sorry, I'm still in imagination.
I don't blame you. Maybe when you move up with the Redskins, you even include Vernon as part of that deal. So maybe instead of another third, they take Vernon and you eat as much of his salary as you're allowed to eat, and they can have him. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying I think it's something worth considering.
Potential.
I think it's something worth considering. Now, here's something, too, that's been talked about a little. What if the Redskins don't draft Chase Young? What if they go a different direction?
Who's after that? The Lions?
The Lions.
They will get him.
Do you think they'll want to draft him?
Oh, man. He's Myles
I think anybody
Garrett,
would want to draft him. Yeah.
If you look at it like the Myles Garrett year, it was for sure we were getting Myles Garrett at 1, because if we didn't get Myles Garrett at 1, he was going to go at 2.
A little talks of us taking Trubisky, which, God, could you imagine?
Right, but it was like if we didn't go with him at 1, basically anybody who didn't get Myles Garrett would then be gotten by the next team, though.
This sounds crazy, too. I think we have a better shot of trading up with the Redskins than we do with the Lions. I feel like if for whatever reasons, the Redskins decided to go quarterback and give up on Dwayne Haskins, which I think would be stupid as hell. I think way too many people, side note, in the national media are writing off Dwayne Haskins. I think that's stupid, and he's going to be really good. But if the Redskins say they went Isaiah Simmons, or they drafted a tackle, or say another scenario that could be plausible, the Miami Dolphins trade up to 2 to get their quarterback, or the Chargers trade up to 2 to get their quarterback, and now all of a sudden at 3 Chase Young's there, I don't think the Lions would trade him. Matt Patricia is a defensive guy. Everyone has him taking a corner. The corner from Ohio State at number 3. If Chase Young's there, it's a no-brainer. Matt Patricia's not going to give up nothing for him. But the Redskins, I think, are kind of dumb. So I think we can make it happen.
I'm curious, you mentioned the possibility of the Redskins may be going with a quarterback and not going with Chase Young because they want to give up on Dwayne Haskins. But there's also the possibility of Alex Smith coming back. So
I forgot about him.
I was wondering. Yeah,
I like Alex Smith a lot.
Me too. And obviously he had the horrific leg injury, and I was wondering if there was any possibility of him coming back. And I'm not finding any sources kind of saying that, but it looks like he's done some interviews.
He's been working towards it. I saw a video about it.
He wants to come back. And I think the possibility of that opens up a quarterback competition between him and they just signed Kyle Allen, I think, from the Panthers.
They got him.
So
a lot of quarterbacks going on there.
Yeah.
Redskins are always a mess.
I think the move for them is going to be Chase Young. I think that's the obvious decision.
I think it is, unless...
They're crazy.
They'd like to trade with us.
They're a horrible organization.
They typically are. So I think there's some hope there. So I would be down to trade up to 2. I'm saying the most I would give up is obviously the 10th pick, next year's first, a third from this year, and a third from next year. If we had to give a little more than that, I don't even think anybody would care because we would draft Chase Young, and it would be absolutely insane.
That'd be tough for me, but I would understand it, and I also wouldn't be mad.
I know this is a little bit of a pipe dream. I'm not predicting that we're going to do that.
I'm trying to keep myself less crazy fan, more analytical mindset, because I want to try to predict what this analytical team is going to do.
Let's close up with this. We'll do it next week. Next week we'll make our official prediction of what we think the Browns are going to do.
Next week we'll make our official prediction.
So make sure you tune into that. One thing I want to sign off on, new jerseys coming out this week.
It's probably tomorrow, since we just we'll be posting this.
Allegedly Wednesday, but I bet as soon as this goes live, they'll be out, and I'll be pissed.
It'll be no. I said it'll be after we record, but before we post the episode.
So that means tonight.
That means tonight or tomorrow.
That means if you're watching this, you've already seen it. Son of a bitch.
Dang it.
No, I heard Wednesday. I think they're going to stick to Wednesday.
No, I think it's next week. Daryl Ryder says he already saw he said he saw a sneak peek. He believes that his source isn't feeding him BS, essentially. But I think he also could just be saying that to get the attention of like, ooh, I'm the only one that knows what
Look how cool I am. I'm so cool and important. Yeah, maybe. That could be part of it. I really hate when like assholes on Twitter and in real life are like, you guys care too much about the jerseys. You should just worry about winning. Oh, that's weird. I was so worried about our jersey, I just didn't even care about winning. My bad.
Well, I've always been of the mindset that the fan base only cares so much about these uniforms because they've been riddled with such horrible losses. The fact that we have the 1-15 season and the 0-16 season literally happening in succession after switching our jerseys, I think just made people were already salty about the change, like going to this modernized look, and then the idea that we're also even worse somehow as a franchise.
And the jerseys were really bad, which didn't help either.
I like it.
No, the color rush shit, super sick.
I know. I liked them.
They ruined it because the stripe comes too far across the front. That's just what ruins them. It's that simple.
Sure.
That's all they messed up.
I guess I just don't care as much. I think it's more to me. It was more to me that we sucked.
For me, yeah, the sucking was a big problem. But the second they revealed the jerseys, I was like, the stripe comes too far. And with the shoulder pads, you can kind of get away with it. But like wearing one of those jerseys, like the stripe comes to my nipples. It just doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. So
never cared.
It's funny looking online, all the mock-ups of the new jerseys.
Those are funny.
They all look like what our jerseys were. It's just like you could have just never changed the jersey and that would have been fine.
What I've been told, what I've heard, and what all of us think is going to happen is probably what's going to happen, and it's probably what should have happened to begin with. It's going to be essentially the same classic jerseys with a slight modernized twist.
Great.
Which is what it should have been.
Keep it simple.
Right.
We're the fucking Browns.
Sure.
This is not... I almost went a whole episode without swearing, I think. That was the first one.
Damn.
Oh. No, I don't think damn counts. Because you can say damn on TV.
Fuck.
Oh, there you go. Now
I did say I hate the fucking Steelers.
Oh, well, that doesn't count, though.
The Steelers is a worse word.
Yeah, that's even worse. All right, cool. So I think that wraps up our episode for today. Next time you see us will be about a week from now, and we will do our official predictions for the draft. Probably just the first and second round pick that the Browns do. We're not going to get too crazy. We'll do like a top 10 mock
and then
or whatever.
Top 10 mock, yeah.
we'll do that, and those will be our official predictions, and maybe we'll give ourselves some points after the draft and see, like
points will return.
Yeah, that could be pretty cool. I don't know. And then obviously at that point, the jerseys will be out too, so we'll talk about
that a little bit.
Definitely talk about the jerseys. I know, like, you don't care, but like,
okay, we'll talk about
them for sure, though. Sick. All right, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. We should have said that at the beginning. I'm told that's important.
Isn't the button here somewhere?
It's definitely down here. I confirmed. Looking right, I think so at least. Now I'm second guessing. Make sure if you're.
I hope it's like not.
Yeah, it's just the opposite direction.
Like and subscribe.
If you haven't checked out the Kennel on YouTube yet, definitely check it out so you can see what we actually look like. Just like I said,
don't, in case you're scared.
I mean, really, you can do whatever you want. I'm not really telling you what to do. That'd be some bullshit. But just go on YouTube and search the Kennel episode 116, whatever this episode's called. Copy and paste it from however you're listening to it now, and you'll be able to find it that way. Subscribe, like it,
and we'll have it linked up on Twitter at Football Kennel,
and Instagram at Football Kennel,
Facebook at Football Kennel,
all
LinkedIn.
the places. Yeah, maybe LinkedIn.
Don't follow us on LinkedIn.
Just ignore the LinkedIn. It's been a joke that's gone on for too long. But I mean, you can
if you want.
Anyways, see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Go Browns.
Go Browns.